On October 10th, 2007, Valve released Team Fortress 2 for PC, a sequel to the 1996 mod for Quake and the standalone Team Fortress Classic game in 1999. It took 9 years to develop and has been infamously said by Valve founder Gabe Newell that hopefully it would have been worth the wait.
Oh, you know what? You're a comedian. Sorry.
Pretty much everyone that still has an interest in TF2 in the year 2026 knows all this. But did you know that on Xbox 360 there was a TF2 port that was released the same day as its PC counterpart? I certainly didn't know it came out the same day as PC until I began writing the script for this video, but I had always known that it was released sometime on Xbox in 2007, but not day one. The game was part of a package deal called the Orange Box, which is essentially 5 games in one, with the majority of them being Half-Life 2 and all of its expansions, which were called the episodes. There was also Portal, the puzzle game, and finally TF2 itself. At the time, many had called this the best deal in video game history. Now, I remember getting the Orange Box as a kid in 2007 sometime, but I only mostly stuck to playing the Half-Life games for a number of years, just because I didn't have Xbox Live until 2009. And even still, the earliest memory I have of playing TF2 was around in 2010. It was one of those memories you have that is only a few split seconds long, a snapshot in time if you will. I remember I was playing heavy and running down the long corridors on 2 Fort, the ones that connect to the courtyard, and I was on the red team. At the time, I also remembered I was arguing in an Xbox Live party with a friend, who I met on Halo 3, and it was about something, but whatever it is, I don't know. I think if Halo didn't dominate my attention as a kid, I would have played TF2 even earlier, but I think the attitude I had at the time of being a child was that the art style for TF2 looked too cartoony, and I had written it solely off on that merit. And I guess I can't really hate myself for thinking this, because Halo 3 did look really good at the time, and it was really fun, but I just kind of wish I stepped outside of my comfort zone, like earlier, and played it. And there were a few of those snapshot memories of playing TF2 from around 2011-2013, but I think my interest in the game really picked up around 2014, where I can consistently remember playing it until around 2023 or 2024. And I haven't touched the console version in a few years, with some exceptions I'll probably get into later, and I really only play on PC now. But with all that being said, I wanted to jump into the main point for making this video. I wanted to talk about the Xbox 360 version of the game, and why it was such a unique and surreal experience compared to its main counterpart on PC. I like to say I have sufficient time and knowledge of this game to give you a fairly intimate account of its history and the culture within it. And in the video I want to run down the differences between Xbox and PC, how it was played, and talk about a few of the interesting people and groups that used to play this version. The console ports, yes, there is a PS3 port that I didn't talk about, but I'll briefly mention it at certain points in the video, are probably the truest versions of TF2 that you can get. With all the other versions of TF2 being released now on Steam, like Team Fortress 2 Classified, Team Fortress 2 Legacy, and Team Fortress 2 Gold Rush, you guys should really just get on the Xbox version if you want to experience what the game was like in 2007. Valve only released a few patches for that 360 version, and only one for PS3. The majority of the patches were just bug fixes and exploit patches, but notably the last patch in 2009 added the ability to toggle crits, damage spread, and limit classes, which I actually thought the game always had, but no, they didn't. Valve wanted to have actual updates for this game, but Microsoft urged them to make them all paid, which Valve at the time refused to do. Thus, the game was perpetually locked in its launch state. No new weapons, no hats, and no items of any kind. You only got the 6 maps that the game launched with. But despite the patches, there's a lot of bugs and glitches.
It's not a glitch, it's an exploit. There's a difference, and only noobs say it's the same thing.
Sorry, exploits that you can do. Perhaps the funniest and best glitch you can do is slide taunting. PC, in my opinion, is vastly superior in almost every aspect to the console versions, but they don't have anything on this. Both the PS3 and the Xbox versions have this ability. So if you don't know, slide taunting is where you taunt, but you immediately jump to cancel the animation. Except you don't actually cancel it, you just cancel being stuck in place. So the result is your character moves while taunting, which even to this day is still amusing and at times funny to me given the context.
Seconds. 5, 4 seconds. 5, 4.
I'm not sure if doing this gives you any advantage beyond the obvious one of you can taunt kills whenever you want and you can't be punished for it. But I've heard a few times over the years that this maybe messed with your hitbox, making you harder to headshot, but I've never really seen it confirmed, so I think the jury's still out on this one. You can shoot through the spawn gates on Dust Bowl as sniper and kill people. It's on certain spots like first stage, first point, attacking side with the stairs. If you line yourself up with the bottom lip of the door, your dot will go through and you can kill people this way. The same is true on second stage, first point, attacking side, in the trench. You can probably do this on any spawn gate that moves up, but I think Dust Bowl ones are the most common, and I've only really seen it done on Dust Bowl. Perhaps the worst exploit of all is sky building as an engineer. You can do this on 2 Fort and Dust Bowl, I know for sure. You might be able to do it on the other maps, I've never really seen it though. Or maybe you can do it on the other maps, it's just way harder to do it on them. I wouldn't be surprised if you could really do them on them as well. It's still fairly easy to take out these spots as long as the cheating engineer doesn't have a good team defending him, otherwise it's pretty much impossible to insanely hard. And there's also a spot the engineer can get onto under the map on Gravel Pit defense side that allows sentries to shoot under the map. And these are more or less impossible to take out. Did you know that on Xbox you can forever flash people until the charge runs out? There's no penalty like on PC for doing this. You can also hold Uber forever until you want to swap back to it. There's a ton more I haven't even covered, but I don't want to spend the whole video glossing over them. Moving on to the classes themselves, some of the mercs differ from their PC versions, from slightly to very radically. Scout on PC in the right hands turns into a nigh invincible killing machine that can 1v1 any class, but on Xbox, because you're using a controller and you have no aim assist, yes, you have no aim assist for any of the classes in this game, connecting shots and moving and using terrain at Scout's fast speed is extremely hard. That's not to say you can't do well as Scout on Xbox with enough practice, it's just really hard and an awkward learning experience. On Xbox, Soldier gets his original 32 reserve of rockets with 4 in the tube, obviously, compared to just 20 on PC. Of course, you cannot change your loadout and gunboats don't exist here, so you're always going to take 40 to 50 damage per jump depending on the angle. Worst of all, probably for Soldier, rocket jumping is significantly more awkward and not as developed on console. You can do regular and wall jumps just fine, but really not much else. And the skyboxes on the original 6 maps on this version are smaller, and you don't have the terrain to really support a highly mobile soldier. There are times you can pogo jump, like on 2 Fort's bridge to the other side, but these are highly situational and will leave you with half health, and unlike on PC, there's no health kits in the 2 Fort bases, only in the sewers. You can't C-tap either, but I guess you don't really ever need to do this, so that's kind of a moot point anyways, trying to compare this. Now, if you want to play Pyro on Xbox, just know you're the worst class to be hit by TF2's launch state. You don't have any air blasts at all. Your only hope of killing people is to ambush and play in corners, or just hit people with your shotgun or try to play with like a combo. Heavy. What is there to say about Heavy? On PC, Heavy is super powerful and can get a lot done, but on Xbox there's just something about him that isn't as good. Obviously you don't have your sandwiches, your other miniguns, and your gloves, but he just feels slower and is able to do less damage. I honestly think there's something wrong with his minigun spread, and it doesn't do damage like it does on PC. But again, not to say you can't pop off with him if you're decent enough, he's just not the guy he is on PC, much like Scout.
Bullet, 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 bullet!
Demo. Demo's already strong as hell on PC, being able to do around a potential 1200 damage with his explosives, but he's even better on Xbox if you can believe that. Stickies have an arm timer on PC that ramp their damage up, but this is completely non-existent on Xbox. Because of this, you can shoot out 100 to 120 damage projectiles instantly, and you have 40 reserve ammo. 40 reserve ammo, unlike the 24 on PC, and Demo's grenade launcher carries 30 reserve ammo, unlike Demo's 16 on PC. Interestingly enough, on PS3, Demo's pipes only do 15 to 30 damage on direct hit. I don't even know the explanation for this.
What were they thinking?
I only know this from talking about PS3 players that migrated to Xbox. PS3 players, for good reason, exclusively use stickies, and they're apparently even more powerful on their version. I don't even know. I've been told that Dust Bowl on PS3 was a crucible that only saw demos and medics fighting in the chokes, non-stop Ubers and stickies flying everywhere. Engineer suffers from the 2007 state probably almost as much as Pyro does. You have no level 3 buildings and you cannot move your buildings. No options for fast setups in your spawn because you can't move them, and there's no fast teleporters or dispensers, and no ability to move things up quickly when your team advances. Medic. Medic's also stronger on Xbox like Demo, if you don't factor in the stock weapons. Infinite flashing, like I mentioned earlier, you can hold the Ubers for attacking offensively or making an escape. Sniper. Much harder to headshot people, and the aiming is clumsy and awkward at first for new players. Just like Scout, your aim is really gimped here and you're without aim assist. But despite all that, there have been a good amount of scary snipers on Xbox over the years, if you can believe that, hitting shots that seem impossible for the tools given on console, but it is feasible. With enough practice, even you could do this too. Spy. Spy is weakened like Pyro and Engineer, but it's really mostly just because he doesn't have his PC kits, so you're left to a completely vanilla Spy experience. There's also not an ability to regain cloak on ammo pickup, just because I think that was added far later on PC. And if you disguise yourself as Medic, you're a complete dead giveaway, just because there's no Uber charge percentage on your nameplate making you completely obvious. These are the major changes in the classes compared to PC. More or less, you will do the same damage with all the weapons here as on computer. But despite the weapons doing the same damages on PC, you just don't get any of the visual cues for damage numbers. For classes like Scout, this completely leaves you in the dark for how much damage you're doing a lot of the times. I've had it happen to me, and I've seen it with others, where you think you meat shot somebody with the scattergun only for you to do a few measly points of damage. Now, I kinda jumped the gun and told you about how all the classes differ from PC version first, but how did the game itself differ? First off, the servers are all obviously peer-to-peer hosting, probably comparable to community servers on PC, except far more basic in terms of setting. Because of the console limitations at the time, the maximum amount of people in a game can only be 16.
Beast Soldier?
Just a meager 8v8. This is a very big far cry from PC's 16v16 standard lobbies that you see in a lot of pubs and community servers. The host can either wait in a lobby menu for people to join, or they can kick people or change settings before starting. The only options the host can change are player count, private slots, the map, and the amount of rounds, the timer, the addition of private slots, which are invite-only reserves, essentially lock a few players out of the game and they can only join with an invite. And finally, enable crits and damage spread. Once in game, the host can no longer kick people or change any of the settings beyond enabling or disabling crits, damage spread, and setting limits for classes. The host also had the ability to shut down the game at any point, kicking everyone out in the process. Game chat is also a trip back to the past in 2007, as the audio is insanely crunchy and compressed.
Mission begins in 30.
Mostly everyone sounds the same, and it's really difficult to make out what people are saying at times.
People walking around in their forts right now.
Also, if you had a Connect mic, it made things infinitely worse, as your entire living room would be captured and shoved through this 2007 mic filter.
Sorry. Big fish in a small pond.
For this last segment, I wanted to quickly run through some of the interesting characters and groups of people that played this game over the years. Even when I was consistently playing in 2014 and 2015, there wasn't the player count like there was on PC. Now, if you've ever consistently played on a community server, you'd know all the regulars, and they would know you. Your playstyle probably, what classes you liked, and there would probably be a hierarchy of skill and how you fit into that hierarchy. On Xbox, it was essentially one big community server. Everyone that played even somewhat often knew each other, at least by name, and good players stood out easily. Yeah, I was kind of a big deal on Xbox. You could say I was pretty good.
Oh, wait, I was just joking, none of it mattered. I'm just kidding, it's not a big deal, it really wasn't a big deal.
In all seriousness, I think early on I had an ego on this game. It wasn't hard to top score and be a pub star, but I'd like to think I quickly dropped that when I saw people that were playing the game and they were consistently out DMing me. I could easily drop 10 to 20 people right now that were better than me even at my best in this game. The final nail in the coffin was being made aware of what's possible on computer, and even just looking at footage of low div 6's players and being like, with all that being said, the lower skill ceiling and player count made it easier to stand out and really be, in a way, a big fish in a small pond. But you know how the saying goes, there's always a bigger fish. Except that bigger fish existed in another universe more or less, and you weren't even a fish. You were a 6th grader pushing down kindergartners on the playground. But actually that bigger fish did exist, but it was a fully grown adult that played D1 basketball and you were trying to play bump against him. Finally, I'll get into the players. This is going to be a rapid fire sequence since this video is already getting too long as it is, and I could legit spend a few hours just going over the lore and getting fully in depth on a lot of people. I want to stress in no way that I'm trying to belittle or harass anyone that will be mentioned on here. I'm only trying my best to be objective in what I remember about them and how they played or what made them notable. Dr. Crinkled. This was a 40-something-year-old dude that was married and had kids. What made him so infamous was that he was a big trash talker and he would legit taunt every kill that he did.
Never cap it. That's why we do this. We wouldn't have capped it either. Fucking loser. Oh, you're a little fucking what for, you think you're doing something, you troll? We miss you.
His favorite spot was just to camp in his courtyard as soldier, and he would just drop down on anyone coming in and kill them and immediately taunt. I remember playing a lot in his lobbies, and I was friends with some of the people in his group. He stopped playing in like 2018 or 2019. Jerry DeBoss. This guy is notorious for sending messages to anyone and everyone who kills him. It doesn't matter if it's once, twice, dozens of times, even if you don't taunt the guy, he will inevitably message you and call you a hacker. And it doesn't even matter how you killed him either. This guy's been at this for over a decade, I'm pretty sure. He's been playing longer than me, and I think he still plays to this day. I don't even think this is a bit, but if it is, he's a genius, and he's unparalleled at the long game. ZZ Toast ZZ. So this one is complete hearsay from my friends, but this dude was apparently 80-something years old, and he played a lot of this game back in like 2018, and 2017, 2016, 2015, I think. I only saw him play demo, and he actually wasn't bad for a guy that was reportedly that old. And one day he just stopped playing, and eventually one of my friends got a message from his apparent son saying that he had passed away. Fatal. Really good player, and he was a cool dude. He could play any class really well. He had a friend group that consisted of players called Rasputin, Lelouch, Zero, Circuit, Judge, and some other people. I remember my friend group and I would pug scrim him back in the day, like around 2017 and 2018. He was infamous for hosting 2-fort lobbies that lasted several hours, and him and his friends would almost always be spawn camping, with a sentry gun, stickies on the door, snipers and spies watching drop down embattlements, the whole 9 yards. There was a game in particular that was up for at least 8 hours where Fatal had over 1100 points before the game ended. Army War Vet 19K. This guy was a Gulf War vet that played almost exclusively Engineer. He was really good at Engie, and he told one of my friends one time that he had like 20,000 hours on the class, which I probably believe that. A lot of it was spent in front of his sentry gun, and he would be whacking it endlessly. He used a trick where if you hit any button and then immediately open the Xbox Live dashboard, it would forever repeat that button command. So whatever he was doing, he was probably just watching on his phone, watching TV, I don't know, but he would just be near his sentry doing that for hours at a time, I think. And he would play a lot too, but a lot of it was spent just doing that. Even if he had a few good players on his team, if it was on 2-fort, you'd probably never get past his guns, which was crazy. Dared Lobster 734. Apparently he was a retired real-life engineer that played this game. He almost always played Pyro. His background is really the only notable thing about him that I included for this list, and just because it makes me kind of in shock that there were so many like retired or like older generations that played this game. Elite 419. You've seen a lot of his clips used already for this video, but this guy could legit play any class extremely well, like Fatal. He's probably the best sniper that I've ever seen on Xbox. Anytime I played against him on Dust Bowl and I was medic, I had to prioritize sightlines and treat him as the biggest threat. The craziest part is that he lives in Australia, so he almost always had 200 to 300 ping in NA and Europe games, but he could still do a lot of work despite that connection. Delphi 2. Like mentioned way earlier in this video, this guy solely did exploiting and glitches when he played, and it was only to inconvenience and troll other players. It got so bad I think at one point that I remember my whole friend group and Elite would like team up to like hard focus him for his games, and we would kill him over and over until he left. RoboNG. This was a retired 50-something-year-old that I bet you couldn't guess what class he played. He might have been an actual engineer like Dared Lobster 2, I don't remember. And I remember one time he revealed to me in conversation that he just gets drunk and plays TF2 all day. He had a really nasty habit of placing level 1 sentries in the water on 2 Fort, which was very annoying if you were distracted or running to the sewer for health. Spec 2x2 Ross. Also a veteran like Army War Vet, and I think it was the same conflict too. He would mash call the medic button every possible chance and he would never stop. There's never like any dead air of him not calling for medic. It was always any possible chance to call for medic, he would call for it. Mostly played demo and he would talk a lot of trash too. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far. I left out a lot and I had to cut out a lot too because I just either didn't have any good footage for it or I didn't really think it was worth presenting in front of a lot of the other stuff that was covered in the video. I didn't even get to talk about the competitive scene on this version really, or stuff that happened like the broken server browser that affected matchmaking for a few years. Some of the other players that were interesting. There's a modding scene on this game too, and they've done a lot of impressive things like add air blast for pyro, custom maps, etc, etc. Maybe I'll make another video on all that stuff in time if there's a demand for it. But until then, thank you again for watching.
I'm waiting for the teleporter.
Teleporter system going online.